All right, so I'm going to give a quick overview of the investment space or investments that's been made into AR and VR. In the last 12 months, since now we're in the month of December, so now we have data for the whole year. There were $2.5 billion invested across 27 AR/VR sectors. And that's compared to $1.8 billion that was committed to the 12 months prior. And in Q4 of 2017, we had $1 billion in investments, and 2 large companies took the lion's share of that. Magic Leap took about $500 million, and Niantic took $200. And Q3, if you guys didn't see this before, Q3 marked the first time that we had not just, specific niche investors looking into AR. It was the big guys now. It's literally everyone out there who's looking into AR to invest. So this chart graphically depicts the investments, or the size of investments that's been made into the space. And as you can see in Q4, the dark blue represents smart glasses, which is Magic Leap, for $500 million. And then the green is Niantic. What you'll see here is all the different types of investors, all the investors that's been investing into AR and VR, and across the different sectors that exist. You'll see a combination of financial investors, which are the VCs and accelerators, like 500 startups. And then you'll see the strategic investors, which are the large tech companies. Yeah, can you see that? It's kind of tiny. It's like, oh, a bunch of logos on a page. All right, so I'm going to pass the baton.
To me?
To Dave.
Hello everyone, how are you?
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
I'm Dave Broom, CEO of Balanced Edutainment and author of Ponce's Pajamas. I want to introduce the company that's going to be doing a demo now, Who Dat. They're a team of engineers that are building an augmented reality platform called Origin, and it's going to empower development in many ways. You'll be able to create beautiful AR experiences, and they're going to simplify how we actually create AR. So let's put our hands together for Who Dat. Who's going to represent Who Dat today? Okay. Here you are, sir.
So I'm Sriram. I co-founded Who Dat about 3 years ago, very early in the times of AR. We are based in India, in Bangalore in India. We're just starting out our team in California right now. Thanks Anna for inviting us. So Who Dat was formed by me and my co-founder. Both of us come from a research background, and we were really annoyed that it takes a lot of time and effort to create great AR apps, and we wanted to contribute to that. So I just want to show you a video that we've made showing our product. those who know what an AR kit or an AR core is, I'll just sort of step back a little bit and tell you the fundamental problem that AR has, right? So AR is all about positional tracking. So what you're trying to do to get great AR is you want to know the position of your environment with respect to your phone as you're sort of moving. And if you know that, what you can do is you can anchor digital content onto your environment persistently. That allows you to put a chair in your living room that doesn't exist and sort of walk around it. And the reason why it's persistent is that it knows the position of the camera with respect to your environment. That technology is called SLAM. It's called Simultaneous Localization and Mapping. And that's what allows ARKit and AR Core to do what they do really well. That works really well, but the problem is AR is computationally really expensive. So you need really high-end devices to run AR. And if you know anything about AR Core, it runs on 4 devices today. They say it'll come onto a couple of 100 million devices in the next year or so. But it's still a problem. Most of the world can't experience AR, and you need a high-end device to do that. The second thing is, people really like to talk about how technology like AR allows you to put any content anywhere. That's great, but it's not really useful. Most things in life require context. If you want to see a chair, it should probably be in your living room or on the floor. There is some contextual information required. You can't put a chair on your wall. It's just going to look silly. So current AR solutions just provide you no context. You can put anything anywhere. That's why we came up with Origin. So we decided to do 2 things really well. The first one is make it completely platform independent and figure out a way to scale an AR solution so that it can reach hundreds of millions of devices really quickly. So we're not going after the most accurate solution, but we're actually going after the solution that actually gets on the most number of devices. That's what most developers care about. The second thing is we'd like to provide you with out-of-the-box context and allow you to sort of build on that context as you keep moving forward. So there are a few things that Origin does really well. The first one is called markerless. So if hands up if you know of a company called Vuforia. Okay. For those who don't, Vuforia pretty much started AR as most people know today. They had an engine that recognized images, and you could show content around that image. So if you recognize the logo, you could show some content around it and so on. What markerless means is instead of recognizing an image, you actually recognize your environment. And that's what we call environment tracking. So we build markerless out of the box. The second one is context. So we build a context engine based on our deep learning research. What this allows you to do off the top is, as a developer, you know what the user is looking at. So you know whether the user is indoor, is the user outdoor, is the user looking at a wall, floor. So you can actually cater content very specific to that. So an example is, if you want to show an LED screen, you probably want to show it on a wall. So if you're say Samsung and you want to create an experience for your user, when the app starts out, if the user is not pointing at the wall, you can actually guide them. You can say, hey, so you're not looking at a wall right now. Can you go and point the device at the wall? And what we also do is we give you the wall as a segmented plane. So now as a developer, you can specifically place objects on the wall. Like if people have used ARKit or AR Core, all it does is it finds planes. So so it doesn't know the difference between a table and a floor. All it knows that both of them are planes. And we think you need to go a step further. You need to actually know context about what you're putting where. So we provide you with a framework. The next thing that we do out of the box is it's multi-platform. So you want to build for Apple, it works great if you're mostly just building for the US. But if you even remotely care about the rest of the world, you probably want to go Android very, very quickly. Most of the world runs on Android. The way we built our framework is it's really easy for us to take it forward and actually embed it into AR glasses and drones. Because the way we look at it is every device that has a camera will very soon, in some shape or form, become an AR device. You can either see the AR out there, or you'll be able to beam that onto a device somewhere else. The fourth one is something that's really special to me. We call this AR as a service. So one of the reasons why AR only runs on high-end devices is because all of the computation is done on device. So you need a really powerful processor on your phone to do the computation for you to have a great AR experience. What we figured out was a great protocol to actually beam this AR just like a video conference call. Just the way you do FaceTime. What happens during FaceTime? The oil rig and constantly giving information about security, about things of that nature. And now that the camera feed is being captured, and this is a really high resolution camera feed, you have someone who's remotely sitting and looking at a computer screen, looking at this camera feed, who can add annotations in the actual environment. So you can actually say, you can actually ping someone and say, hey, can you go to this area, and I'm going to show this information on top of this machine that you can go and see. So when you actually go to that area, you don't have to figure out which machine he was talking about. You actually use your phone to point there, and you can actually see that information there. So it actually works as a two-way street. You can use drones to sort of use the camera information to place objects, and then also use your someone on the ground having a smartphone who can view this object.
Your deep learning initiatives, and also just how you tied into your product and your platform.
So we are very careful about calling our deep learning context and not AI, just to stay away from all the noise that comes along with it. We use deep learning to help. So at the core of it, most AR problems can be solved using computer vision. Whenever computer vision, the legacy of computer vision fails at doing something, we try and see if deep learning can help it become better. That's how we think about our deep learning research. So we use deep learning to do a couple of things. So one of the things that we do is depth. So how do you get scale of the world, right? So we use real world footage as well as synthetic footage to train our neural nets to be able to give us an estimation of scale. Then on top of that, what we do is we segment. So we use a lot of procedural 3D content. It's something, if someone understands graphics programming, it's how you create 3D worlds without actually creating them. So we use procedural 3D to sort of build indoor environments and sort of train our algorithms using that. And that allows us to recognize a floor versus a wall versus a table. We also use deep learning to do accurate estimation of light. So how do you shade an object? That it should. So if a chair is out here, you need the chair to look like it belongs here and not like a random 3D object that you've thrown into your scene. So you can actually. So there are deep learning techniques that allow you to get lighting information in a spherical mode just from a single image. And a lot of these networks are actually open source and available out there. It's just really important to just find the right ones and use them in your way. And the trick here is to find innovative ways of collecting data that you can feed into your neural networks. Yeah.
When you put your 3D object in a space in the VR, does it cache shadows?
In AR, yeah, it does.
Huh.
So the way most people do the way what most people don't realize is that all you do for shadows is, if it's a 3D object, like a chair here, and you want to show shadows on the floor, all you do is you bring in the shadow from the 3D software and you render it on a transparent plane.
Huh.
And that allows you to do shadows just fine. To make it more realistic is a challenge. To make it generic, to make it look like it comes out of a studio setting.
Yeah.
Like the lighting here is fairly even, so it's not a problem. The problem happens when you have really directional light, or if it's daytime and you have light coming through this and the way shadows appear there, that's a little difficult. In a setting like this, doing lighting for this is actually fairly simple. So all you want to look at is transparent shadows in 3D, and you should be able to do that.
Alright.
So if you're using a software like Unity, there's a shader that just does that.
Do you detect vertical planes?
Yeah, we detect walls. We don't detect vertical planes, we actually tell you it's a wall. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So how many of you tried out the White Rabbit demo in front of here? What do you think about it? Like it? Well, the next speaker that I'd like to introduce is Nicole Lazzaro. So for 25 years, Nicole Lazzaro has run XEO designed to unlock human potential through play. From designing the first iPhone game to planting 16,000 trees in Madagascar to authoring the 4 Keys to Fun, her work inspires hundreds of thousands of leading developers worldwide, including including The Sims, Myst, and Star Wars.
Narrative, what we need as an industry to take on the challenges that we're going to need for doing really compelling experiences in AR, in augmented reality and in mixed reality. If you think about it, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, games have always created it. It's this magic circle. We draw our players in for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days. And games have been doing this for decades, and so have I. So I'm a leading expert on how emotion drives play. I'm most known for designing the first iPhone game, as well as the 4 Keys to Fun. And this is a model that I developed, measuring the emotions on people's faces while they played games. And it's actually used in the AI for The Sims. So one of the reasons why you cry, or you get frustrated, or you're happy when your Sims do, can't use the bathroom or whatever, go out on a date, is because Will and Claire, the team, really intentionally designed interaction patterns that create strong emotional responses. And that's what makes The Sims such an amazing franchise. And what virtual reality is it actually is this trip down a rabbit hole to experience Wonderland. That's what augmented reality is. That's what we're doing. So we're creating these new wonderful spaces. And it turns out I actually grew up in Wonderland. I grew up for 5 years in Iran, overseas, riding camels, climbing pyramids, exploring fire temples, and I kind of want to go back to when I was a kid and feel that full body emotion I had as a child, right? And some of you might do as well, might want to feel that way too. And mixed reality is the first technology that has allowed me to feel that way again. And that's everything behind what we're doing at XEO Design and XEO Play. In a sense, virtual reality and augmented reality is this ticket to Wonderland. And the problem that we all face is, on the technology side, is it doesn't matter how great the frame rate is or how great, amazing the AI is. The train isn't even going to leave the station unless the user or the player is compelled, right? We really need to feel, we need to create these experiences that make people feel again and again and again. The lack of emotion is one of the main reasons why players don't play more than 15 minutes in any given augmented reality app. So this is why we're creating Follow the White Rabbit. So it is an adventure around the world, all the places I visited as a kid. And it's a series of mixed reality escape rooms featuring a magician and whose magic one day suddenly works. Here's a quick trailer. So Follow White Rabbit is essentially what we're doing is we're creating, as I said, a series of escape rooms. But more than that, it's actually what we call a narrative space. And so what we want to do is we want to have people beyond what you do in a normal computer game and a normal video game, is you want to be able to dynamically feel differently as you move around and as you interact with things. So it's this mystery adventure with this mixed reality twist. We have a story with global appeal about a rabbit, and then it's this adaptive world that I'm going to be talking about today that responds to you. The other game that I've worked on is, of course, Tilt World. How many people know I've heard of Tilt World? Yeah, a few? Okay. It's the first iPhone game, and we developed it. It's planted 16,000 trees on the island of Madagascar. So this is really going to focus on design, and it's about the future of what we need to do to create these narrative spaces. So this is what we need to do to create AI, to create compelling content. We want content that gives me the feels, right? I like shadows, and I like frame rate, and I like pixels, the lack of pixelization, love all that. But really, if it doesn't make me feel, it's not worth the sauce. It's not worth me putting on the goggles, not worth me picking up my phone. And we want to do this for more than 15 minutes. So these narrative experiences have to really engage you for more. And this is kind of how I want MR to make me feel. Right? I want to feel encapsulated in a world that takes me someplace else. I want to feel super magical, right? I like catching Pikachu just as much as anyone, but I really want to push myself into this new understanding of the world around me. And so that's why we need this narrative AI for storytelling. So a narrative space, I've used the word a couple of times, it's really a space that creates a series of emotions. So it's a series of events, it might be objects, it might be experiences. Now, as you know, a story generally is linear, so it has a beginning, middle, and end, and the craft of the storyteller, whether you are Spielberg or J.J. Abrams or J.K. Rowling, is you're telling these things in sequence. In a game, you can't always control the sequence, so storytelling kind of gets broken a little bit. So now what we're doing is how can a space and how can AI fill in the gap? What we can do is we can use things. This is the 4 keys to fun. You can download it at 4k2f.com or on my website. And essentially, we can actually create emotions. Just like an artist creates emotion with a palette, with color or font, we can actually, as interaction designers, as coders, as engineers, create emotion too. We can actually create those emotions from the actions you take in a game. So just by pushing a button, when you play a game, you're pushing a plastic button for 40 hours, right? That's pretty much all you're really doing. It doesn't feel that way, it feels very different. So what this does is unpacks that language. So in a sense, just real quickly, and we can go in if you want to ask some more questions later at the end, real quick, it's like curiosity. We start with easy fun. Curiosity, it's the hook that pulls you in. It's easy fun on the far right. It's a curiosity, wonder, and surprise, exploration, and role play. It's like just dribbling a basketball is fun. And that works for about 15 minutes. And that's why most AR experiences only last 15 minutes. It's because that's all the fun they have. They have novelty, right? They have, it's unusual, it's different. It's kind of curious. I'm curious. But you need to step in with another mechanic. And so usually it's hard fun, which is the top of the clover leaf. And that's like challenge with a goal and frustration leading to the feeling of fiera. So it's that engagement of the basketball hoop being small and overhead that makes it more fun. Right? Because dribbling's fun, just whatever. Not a lot of skill there, but taking that skill, having to make basket, make points, that's a different type of interaction, and it feels different in the body. So when you move from easy fun to hard fun, you're feeling different and you're going to be engaged. Hard fun's what you come back to. It'll get you to come back to your experience. And then people fun is all about communication and cooperation. It feels better to win in the context of friends with amusement and friendship, schadenfreude, jealousy, your ego, all those fun things. And communication is just fun because you get that socially bonds come together. And then serious fun, which is all about repetition and rhythm, being acquiring things, creating something you want, and then acquiring it. So by creating verbs, if you will, actions in your space, in your games, in your experiences, you can actually really amplify the emotional content of that experience. And why we need to do more than just easy fun. We want to escape the micro loop of gameplay. So where you start with easy fun is sort of the micro loop, it's the small loop there. And then we go to hard fun, which gets you to come back and to master, gets that feeling of challenge over time. You amplify that with a serious fun meta loop where you're going again and again and you're getting better, you're earning more points, you're progressing in levels, your ship is getting bigger, your city is getting more towers, more buildings and stuff like that. And then there's people fun around the outside where we're engaging, people to come back again and again and again. Social engagement is usually what drives a lot of sessions in traditional games. So if we think about, augmented reality, we kind of want to feel perhaps like the Matrix, but we have the technology to deliver, Pokemon Go. How can we get that? Virtual reality is kind of like a cloak. We pull that world around us. Augmented reality tends to be a window we're looking through. And mixed reality, which is where we're all going, is where we really can't tell the difference. Where it is fully, the CG is fully blended into the environment. The interaction is fully responsive to the world around us. So from a design perspective, this is a bit more of a design talk than tech, is that the world around you is augmented reality genre. So it's a genre, augmented reality, it's a genre around us. That world that you're in, whether it's the computer-generated one or your real world, that blending, that's the genre. And it's the interaction between the two is the game. So, it's not as good an augmented reality experience in terms of if it's just kind of like a game where there's laid out there or there's a floating character. We want that character to be able to walk, in between the chairs. We want that character to be able to, jump on the ceiling, to be able to know the difference between a couch and a coffee table. These narrative spaces are going to bridge between, on one hand you have Mousetrap, the Milton Bradley game, on the other hand you have Mousetrap, the stage play by Agatha Christie. We want to feel like that. We want to create AI that can create a narrative experience and yet provide the interaction that we have in games like Mousetrap. And so it's the environments we think that'll be the first thing that does a lot of the storytelling in games. AI and story for environments, for physical objects, is a much lower bar than an AI for a compelling character. So for completely, for a completely responsive, Turing test type character, that's going to take out a little bit longer. So thinking about how can we create the environments to be more smart and responsive to player interaction, how can we create the artificial elements in our environments to be more responsive to the real world elements in the environment, those things will really start to draw people in. And it's these emotions are having a function, both cognitively, how we understand the world and how we're experiencing the fun. And so getting that AI to leverage between those things will create a much more compelling experience. So some other design things to look at is like the depth maps. The unique thing about augmented reality and VR as well is that we've grown up with, whether you come from film or games, is that we've had a box of crayons where there were 3 colors, a red, a green, and a blue. And we've created amazing experiences with those 3 colors. But with augmented reality, mixed reality, we really have a 4th crayon in the box. And it's depth, it's the Z-axis. So when you're thinking about new ideas, thinking about the idea that you're working on right now, that Z-axis, how are you taking advantage of the depth in that scene, the depth in the characters, the depth in the story or in the interaction? Because that's when it's going to keep it from feeling like it's just pasted in front of you like a wet newspaper. It's that depth in the scene. And interestingly enough, I have a degree in psychology from Stanford, and the depth information is actually stored in a different part of your brain. It's kind of cool. So I can take 2 slides and I can say, hey, here's take a picture of a dollhouse, and and then I one picture A, and then I move a couple things in the dollhouse, and I show you picture B. If I just slide A, slide B, show you those, you can pretty quickly spot the differences between those 2 things, right? But if I put a 3rd slide, a white slide, in between slide A and slide B, you can't tell anything between the 2. You really can't. Your brain actually can't actually remember the first slide in very much detail. If I change the experiment slightly and have you actually, because that white flash is not flushing, it's flushing your visual cortex, but it's not flushing where your brain is actually storing depth. So it's a totally new medium, a totally new part of your brain. And so when we create these depth maps, how we get these worlds to feel deeper and more responsive is when we literally make them deeper and more responsive. So by adding depth where there shouldn't be depth, for example, like this staircase inside a suitcase, can create a very compelling experience. And the depth of the objects as they move around the world should really be part of that game mechanic and a part of how that AI is working. So I don't want it to be orbiting my player at that same fixed distance, constantly, right? We actually want to have the depth information be part of the gameplay. We only have accurate information from, as probably most of you know, from 1 meter to about 10 meters. That's where we have pretty good depth acuity. Anything beyond that, it will look like a billboard. And then what we want the AI to do is we also want the AI to sort of tell the story in terms of the world progressing. So we have, in a sense, instead of trying to make the AI make it very realistic, make the world very realistic, like really like eggs break and glasses pour water, stuff like that. Making it, and then we can't pursue story because we want them to be interactive. What would be making it fun, in terms of a design goal? What would make it fun and immersive, going towards that shared goal? And so we look at world, the objects, the NPCs and friends, and how can they all have a shared goal in this augmented space that we can all pursue to. So the goal for progression systems is having this sort of shared, fun, immersive goal, as opposed to having the goal be, make it super realistic, or tell the specific story that I sit and watch passively. Huh? Oh, NPCs are non-player characters, I'm sorry. So basically you want to have, you have the world interacting, so you've got your augmented world, you've got your objects in the world, your non-player characters, and then your friends. How they're all acting towards a shared goal. And it's the changes to the world, like this is a scene from The Matrix, it's the changes to the world that are going to tell the story. So you can have your characters walk and talk in front of you, and even if they're driven by really good AI. But what will really make it feel like it's changing and that it is really augmented reality is if that world physically changes. So, chairs flip over, a ghost walks through a wall, the ceiling comes down, those kinds of things. Or in here, the garbage truck crashes into, the hardline exit just after Trinity escapes. The changes also to give this really deep feeling in the player, to hack the player's biology and really make them feel, is that if it can change the understanding of who we are. So another scene from The Matrix, another moment when there's that flip between is this real, or am I in a story world, am I plugged in, am I jacked in someplace? Those kinds of understanding moments, those gestalt switches, can be very super compelling emotionally for people when they're playing. And so with augmented reality, there's sort of this fictional overlays. They feel separated now with Pokemon Go and a lot of the technology we have, right? It's more compelling now that we have AR Kit and AR Core, because you can lock that character in the world. And we have a lot of examples, and I think these are the things this is where we're at, and what we want to do is what can we do beyond this? So we can put a character in a world, great, we get a golf clap. We can create a game board, great, another golf clap, right? It's kind of cool, but again, only 15 minutes, it's not going to be an experience, a complete experience. We can create a portal. That's actually a little bit more interesting. I can walk, through into, now I'm in a different world, I can walk back. We're doing this a lot in the later gameplay for Follow White Rabbit. But there's really got to be more to augmented reality to just these, again, really tight, really small hits. This is kind of a, don't play Pokemon while driving. But actually, this is actually kind of a good example because, Pikachu is actually responding to the environment. Right? So Pikachu had an accident, or was the passenger, I don't know, Pikachu was driving in this case. But there's clearly a bridge and a connection. And that's where the AI is going to be compelling. So we can have AI that knows, an NPC or an AI that knows, how many hits it's got, or, how to, register between different types of attacks or parries and stuff like that. But if it really is understanding the world and responding to events in the world, That's what's going to make people go, wow. That's what's going to be very, very compelling experience. If I can do things in this augmented world that I can't do in the real world, or if the characters are doing things like going through portal, like this suitcase that has he's like way bigger than that suitcase. That's what starts to create narrative spaces because it's creating a set of strong emotions while they play. And so in setting up your AI, this is another helpful framework that we have. It's our the event, frame, and terrain triad for narrative spaces. And if you think about the events at the top are there's events at the top, there's terrain, and there's frames. In traditional games and traditional film, the events are controlled by the designers. The frame of the camera controls attention, so it knows exactly where you're looking. And of course, the terrain, the world, the level is all controlled. So all of these are very fixed, prefixed, very fixed in a narrative film. A little bit more loosely fixed in a game because you can run your character around, so that changes the camera a little bit. But in AR and MR, it's completely up in the air, right? And the terrain, you have no idea what that terrain is going to be, and you have no idea what the frame is going to be, as the user is, as the player is playing. So what we tended to do is we shift from a mindset of time frame, like time-based events. And this is like, how many people have seen an AR experience where there's a bunch of arrows that say, hey, go look over here because something happened in some sort of direction, or I move a handle or whatever. But it's basically, the AI has to be, the player has to initiate most of these interactions. Anytime you're tempted to use arrows or audio cues, you still need to use audio, but all of that stuff to move the player around, it's because you're thinking about it upside down. It's kind of like we're transitioning from the automobile, from the horseless carriage, from the carriage to the automobile. And I was talking to Mark Zuckerberg about this a couple years ago. And we need to get through this awkward teenage phase really fast, really quickly. This horseless carriage phase where it's neither a horse, carriage nor a car. We want to move through this fast. And what can happen is that we're used to thinking of being able to just drive we can actually just take control of the car the player's in, right? And we move them around our story. Or we are able to put this big carrot in front, and then they're going to follow that carrot. But in fact, we really have to give the reins to we have to give the steering wheel to the user. And as they drive through our story world, right, through our experience, they're having fun, but they're completely in control. And that's a real challenge for the AI. So we can think about how we get narrative to happen. And I'd like to think of it more deeply than overlaying the room. That's the first challenge, creating compelling AR overlays. This is the under construction cover for the Magritte Museum, which I thought was kind of a fun, one of his paintings. We've got to create something a little bit more deep. And so to do that, we have your NPC engine and your player augmentation all feeding the object recognition. All of these four things have to feed your story engine. And so we get worlds that are mapped. So you can create any room that gets remapped into a Western saloon. Sort of like these from Star Trek or from the titles that we've seen. Real objects play a role. So when real objects are playing a role in the game, as well as virtual objects, or real objects get mapped magically to become more enhanced virtual objects, then we're seeing some progress. As well as object narratives. So we could actually create NPCs from real world objects. And that'll be a very compelling scenario. So when your teapot can literally talk to you, or sing, like this frame from the Beauty and the Beast, that's going to feel like amazing. That's an amazing goal for AI. And then we want to respond to the real world. Now this is a clip again from The Matrix, but you can kind of see is that it could map the AI could actually map gameplay into spontaneously what it's seeing if it understands enough of what it is. So you might have a game, say, which is spot the twins. How do people know where the twins are? Can you see the twins? Yeah, they're right there. And then of course, the woman in the red dress. So we have these Where's Waldo was just a very simple kind of gameplay, but you'd have this running in real time at a cafe, down on Market Street. through your AR glasses, you could have these kinds of games once we get AI that's that compelling. And then there is sort of in-story consequences. So you could have NPCs blended in with your real-world characters to create compelling moments for your story. And of course, you can also just remap things like turn everybody into a zombie with AR overlays, stuff like that. So when we get there, we're going to have this merged reality, and it's going to feel a little bit like anyone's played Seventh Guest? Yeah, you remember that one, right? So Seventh Guest in the real world, kind of a combination between Seventh Guest and Fantastic Contraption. Okay, so if you think about where it's not just one narrative you're trying to go through, but you have the ability to change and do your own murder mystery dinner. Maybe theming like Game of Thrones. But you want to make sure that it doesn't just look like Game of Thrones, right? It's got to act, you've got to have something to do, some kind of goal, and that goal has got to get dynamically mapped to the space that you're in. So the AI needs to know where to hide the body. Right? Where would be the most interesting place to find the knife, right? What are the interactions within that world that would be the most compelling? So if you've got, your character, Pikachu, for example, if Pikachu is jumping on the couch, Pikachu's going to have a different thing than if it's jumping on the coffee table, right? It's going to interact differently. If it's on the coffee table, it's of course going to be knocking over the popcorn or whatever's there, right? If it's on the couch, it's just going to see how high it can jump, right? And then maybe it gets stuck in the chandelier or something. Those kind of bridges will be the fun part, and the game is going to have to know through object recognition what's going on. And then lastly, these worlds will feel more real, and this is the harder part, with explorable player characters. So it's not just that they feel real, but they feel like I really want to get to know them. They have got depth, and they are interacting with them can be compelling. They're not just robots that come on the screen a little bit. This is from Star Trek, the OK Corral. They're giving you, they have depth, and then they're inviting you in, and they're also giving you moral choices. So the types of interactions have to be, really tightly worked into what players, what providing choices for players that have a deep emotional resonance, and that'll make everything feel much more deep. And so if you think about it, AI isn't just trying to mimic human interaction or human, cognition, so that I'm fooled that, oh, it's not an actor, it's actually an AI. That's not the goal. The goal is to create an experience that people will then talk to and want to talk about and want to come back, and it's really moving, a very moving experience. So if you were thinking about a haunted house, like setting up a haunted house and you run the kids in your neighborhood through, you can have costumed actors and they can jump out and move and stuff like that. It's the amount of response that you get, that's the quality. Not just that this really looks like a witch or a wizard. It's like, what is the scale? What is the joy? And you want them to question. So again, this is kind of a hook. You really want to pull people in, and in the narrative NPCs really pull you in and really cause you to question like who they are in the world. And so it's not just enough to have just a character popping in, and then you understand them, and it's Charlie Chaplin or whatever you can identify. It's like who is that? And you start your brain starts to work. So you want to design these AIs, these little Velcro, these little hooks that trigger cognition in the player, in the viewer, that make them want to compel to find more. In Follow the White Rabbit, which is a narrative space, we have designed on a very primitive level. The easiest one to explain anyway is you can think of it as four points on a compass. There's a compass rose around you in the middle of the room, and in each direction there's actually a different emotion profile. So as you turn, you will create a narrative, a moving experience, just because you're going to see and experience a different emotion no matter where you look, as you look. And then as you interact, each direction then happens, changes over time this way. Okay. And so we have in a room that's essentially, without an actual story, right? Without an actual beginning, middle, and end. You can, but it's like an onion. As you peel layers, you're going to feel different as you discover different layers, and as you move this way within one or within a hybrid, a blend of layers, you're also going to feel differently as you discover these places. And then narrative PCs, absolutely bringing your friends, because your friends are, in people fun, there are more emotions and social interaction than the other 3 keys combined. So wider variety, more intense, more frequent. So one of the simplest ways to get more emotional response is allow the AI to bring in and respond to more than one person at a time. So I just one last thing, if I have time, is that for characters, for character customization, we think about thematic immersion, which is great. So I'm an astronaut, so I get to put on, astronaut gloves. I'm a knight, so I get to put on, armor. And that's really compelling because it puts you in the world. But then that's not really narrative, right? It's thematic. What we want is we want to, in a sense, put the person into that world with room in which to operate. There's a lovely talk by Richard Dansky he does the Tom Clancy games, he's the writer there. He talks about a player-shaped whole. So as we design these narrative spaces, the interaction that you do, the character design, the AI, there is this place for the player, and there's motion for the player, and room for the player to, and again, so again, it's not, you don't hold the player by the nose and say, look here, do there, push this button. It's this whole that allows them to go through that experience. So if, again, like using the haunted house metaphor, it's not like you literally have to look this way, look that way, but there's enough of a room, enough of a way, a path through, so that they can have their own good time. And characters are also, you want them to be fun and expressive. This is Captain Janeway from Star Trek Voyager, and she has a great time in character, as a character. But you want them to be sure that they're fun to play. Be sure that they're really interesting, and that your AI is responding to different things that the player does, so that you create these dynamic worlds and dynamic character interactions. So it's not just like, you have to find the secret word so that the character pulls a pocket watch out of the pocket and gives it to you. You want there to be a fun repartee that the user can get and roll into. We're creating, again, sensations in the body for our player, and what I want to feel when I'm in these spaces, I want to feel that rustle of silk, right? And this is from a Jane Austen thing, or Everjane, the Everjane, that MMO, the MMO on Jane Austen's MMO. I want to, or just be somebody else. This is mind show, so I just don't want to be some crazy character that's allowing me to expand my experiences beyond what I can do in real life. Because again, it's Wonderland. I want to be Batman. This is a very powerful. How many people have played Batman, the Arkham Asylum one? Yeah. This is a super powerful experience. It only happens twice. They only use it once, and I really want to, where you feel like Batman, again and again and again and again. Not just at the beginning and not just at another place, I won't spoil it. But that feeling is super compelling, and it pulls you into that world in a way that nothing can in the movie. And character customizations are great, but have them mean something. So, and this is the scene with, kind of pixelated there, but when Neo can't talk because his mouth has been warped. It's like, whoa, what is that? You're really bending the rules of physics, which we can in mixed reality. So how do we know we're close to true MR, true experience? So narrative AI for storytelling, we want to think about the world, be sure we were going to incorporate that depth map into the gameplay. The world, show the progress in the world. Make sure that our NPC characters are explorable and there's enough room for the character, for the player character, the real person. And we want to have player customization that tells the story, that creates emotions, over time, to draw everybody deeper and deeper into our worlds. So think a minute about how you'd like to have your narrative space make you feel. And what are some of the things that you could do with characters and with worlds, and even with just the environment or the art that we can do now, the AI we can do now, to get you closer there. All right, great. Thanks very much for listening.
Awesome.
We have Micah James Zahner. He is the founder of Artists Are Scientists, an AR/VR art agency that offers talent for live events and helps companies rapidly prototype. Although he's not affiliated with either Tiltbrush or Art5, his goal is to encourage, with this talk, is to encourage the arts in VR and AR and make it accessible to all.
So if you haven't seen Tilt Brush before, I know there was a few people who raised their hand, maybe many people. This is kind of a quick Tilt Brush advertisement that they released right when they released the app. This is kind of an idea of what happens when you're inside virtual reality using the app. So it's paint that comes out of the end of a brush tip, just like it would in Photoshop or other two-dimensional applications, and it stays in place. It's pretty amazing. So there are many functions inside Tilt Brush now that it makes it this huge immersive creative workspace that you can make many things with. And this is kind of an example of what it was originally, but it's expanded so much from there. And if you can see some of the animated brushes, that's kind of the key to this demonstration. What Tilt Brush does is it has these really complex animations imported into the brushes so that then they can be used to animate AR demonstrations. I give you these like templates that you can print out and put on the wall if you are an artist and you have an art show, or if you have an image. I'm sorry, there's probably something playing in the background. All right. Yeah, so they give you templates that you can print out and put on the wall. It instructs people to download the app. It's a very small app, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. So if you wanted to try it out today, part of the demonstration is going to be me showing you it, and if you wanted to do the augmented reality demo yourself, you can hold up your phone and try it out. So this is just a little video of me painting. So in Tilt Brush, you have this a part of the menu called Guides. And so well, right here I'm going to the image lab. So you have the ability to bring in images into Tilt Brush at high resolution and high quality. And then what you do next is you bring in a shape. So what they do is they give you shapes that your brush tip locks onto, and it becomes a surface. You don't feel it haptically, but it locks you onto the surface so that if you are drawing on some flat plane, it maintains that flatness throughout the entirety of your composition. And here I'm showing you the brush picker. So what's really cool is the brush picker goes and picks colors Pantone correct, I believe. So whatever images or colors you bring in, the brush picker will go up to that pixel of color and take the exact color out and bring it in your brush hand, which is really nice. So if you're doing things for logos or anything like that, you can maintain the efficacy of it. So here I'm going just really quick. I sped up the animation really fast. I'm going over these hands. This is an artwork done by my friends, the Cotto brothers out of Los Angeles. They did a whole series on gang signs, trying to make them beautiful and make people understand them as language and not as danger. And what's amazing is these animations then are used to create that animated AR overlay. So there's a few more minutes left on here. You'll kind of see at the end that maybe you won't, buffering is not always the best. Okay, so you finish it, you go in, and then so what happens is the way this platform works is you drag the original image and you drop it in of the artwork, the image. I'm thinking you can even get to the point where you can do landmarks, which will be interesting. I don't know if they need to have a square edge on it. I haven't spoken with the developers yet, but think about it. You visit a landmark, if it recognizes the image, it recognizes the image, and you can drop your own animation on it from that specific location of holding up your cell phone, which might be interesting in the future. And so this is really simple for non-engineers, non-coders, and all people alike. You really have an ease of use for this product. And so what you do is you drop a video over it. And so I will select, just to show you kind of how it works, so this was the image we used. So it just uploads it real quick. Now when you drop a video, there is some aspect ratio you need to follow. If any of you are Creative Cloud users from Adobe, or you're familiar with learning how to adjust video or photos, it's not super difficult. There's some YouTube videos you can use to find it. So I was able to adjust the aspect ratio of my video, and I was able to make a square video, and this is the overlay. And so just kind of show you what the overlay looked like. So this is the two top sections of the hands. Now what happens is they give you the opportunity to select a color that will become transparent. So in Tilt Brush, you can choose what colors of backgrounds you want to use. I chose a gray because I thought that was probably the least amount of color in my image. It didn't work out as well as I want. I didn't have a whole lot of time to play around with this. This was just something I wanted to do for you all. So definitely give it a shot if you do have this availability at home. And you don't have to use Tilt Brush. You can make your own animations in Photoshop and do this for whatever images you choose. You can do it for business cards, anything. It's real simple. And so here's the animation. It's one of the tools is called Ember, and so that's like these glowing particles kind of rising. And so we loaded that in. So here this video is transparent. You go here and it says color picker, and then it lets you bring a little brush tip up and you select the background color. And that's how you go through that. And so in the end, if you hold your phone with the Artivive app up to this image in any location, anywhere on your computer screen, if you see the image in real life, and the animation will pop up. The one I loaded onto this comes off a little skew, and that again has to deal with me collaborating with the aspect ratios and things and sizes of the two different pieces of content. But you come up with in the end you have your little dashboard here with all the animations you create. They give you 5 free ones. I don't know if this is the beta of the app, so there might become a more paid use version, but for now that's where we're at, and I think I have it happening on my phone here. No. Here we go. So this is me last night sending it to my artist friends, showing them I'm recording on my computer, and then I look away to remove the animation just to kind of show how it's working. But yeah, so that happens on the physical image, and I just really wanted to show you guys how easy it is to create an AR animation very simply using Tilt Brush or any other form of content creation software, and you do a little overlay. So if you have any questions, I'm sure you don't. I kind of like explained it all. I do a lot of different art stuff, especially Tilt Brush, VR art, creation in VR. Also a lot with mixed reality. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to come on and say hi.
We're a small group of artists and designers playing with augmented reality, and maybe a bit different than the augmented reality you guys are used to. We're using projection mapping. So we were really excited about augmented reality, not for the single user, not for the person holding the phone up to their face, but for a group experience. How do you get multiple people to engage in a space together, rather than putting a mask on and segregating each other, or having an individual experience that requires some buy-in or some technology that just isn't accessible. So using projection mapping, and some of you guys are familiar with positional tracking, we're able to do some really exciting real-time projection mapping on moving objects. So we got really excited about this when we first got our Vive VR headset. And pretty quickly we stopped using VR and started AR, using the technology instead, which is not really what it's designed for. But we found a technique pretty quickly that we could use the tracking technology for all sorts of different interactions in the real world. This is a little demonstration using the positional tracking as a painting device. And so having an idea of where things exist in the world space, you can see we can augment and play with real world objects and interact with them with multiple people playing together. And so we think this really opens a world for activating spaces that other people can embody. How do we activate spaces that we're all in together without needing a barrier in between us and the media? So we've been working on a bunch of different techniques around this technology. This is a more recent one where we discovered that we can do a cross-section tool on an MRI scan and give you actual physical ability to move through this. Now you could probably do this pretty easily with the new AR kit stuff. A lot of this came out before that was announced using these positional trackers, but a lot of these ideas are now just becoming possible. All the technology we have here is a standard projector and some off-the-shelf VR components. So nothing here is really out of the realm of possibility. We've developed all of our software custom, so it's not technologically out of the realm of possibility to do this stuff, and it's really, you're going to see a lot more of this spatially recognizable, spatially associated projections or augmentations onto the world. So first time's a charm. Everything's been going so far so good, but you guys have anything to add? Sure.
Where do you find inspiration for your music?
Oh, well, a lot of this has been very experimental. So we are currently in collaboration with a dance troupe to do a real performance. A lot of this has been just like, what can we do, what can we make with this technology, and just experimenting with different things. The inspiration has been very organic. Some of us are interaction designers and artists or programmers, and so we come from a different vein, and we just kind of collaborate on what we think is exciting in that moment. A lot of this stuff is very early demonstrations. All of this stuff we came up with in the past 6 months or so. So you know, we're really looking to take this as a launchpad and see what's next, and what other bigger performative experiences we can do, or what other collaborations we might have in the future. Sure.
The rumor is that Valve's new lighthouses will be like 30 feet or something like that. Is that something that is going to increase your abilities, or?
Oh yeah, so this is the if you guys are familiar with the lighthouse technology, I think it's been rebranded with Steam tracking, but Steam VR, this tracking technology just came about with the Vive a little over a year ago, I think, and they just announced that they're coming out with a new version 2. We don't know much about what sort of resolution improvements, but we do expect there'll be some big scale improvements. They are trying to open up room scale VR to, you know, much larger spaces, house scale VR, stuff like that, where you can have more than 2 base stations in one time. So we're definitely excited and in communication with HTC too about what's coming up, and a lot of exciting stuff. So this is our website, unfoldlab.com. We'll be slowly adding to that. We have another question.
From an interaction, I love the use of physical space. You've got the person's body, you have these different surfaces. I was curious, from an interaction design standpoint, what was most surprising? What was the most surprising thing you learned in developing these features?
Well, so to kind of go back to your previous question, the physicality itself was sort of the inspiration for going with this. That first moment of having something mapped and moving, it kind of unlocked a new mode of like the potential of what we could do with this hardware. And yeah, like anyone that's painted in tilt brush for the first time, realizing the physicality of what they can do, that in itself is an inspiring thing. So the great thing about this is it's haptic. It's a shared experience, and it's haptic. You know, you have to like 3D print or precisely manufacture the object so that you can map to it, but you can feel it, and that's the really exciting thing. You can feel it, you can pass it between people. So yeah, we're really excited to see what we can do with this, with more projectors, more trackers, and find new ways of haptic AR interactions. Because really, like, there's kind of no other way to do haptic AR other than something like this. We're sort of cheating with projectors and sort of limiting the domain, and it kind of lets us peek into like 10 years into the future of what we can do with haptic AR. So yeah, like I'd love to talk to you later if you have any ideas of what you want to do with it.